Hi YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Don't feed the narcs. Before I get started on my topic here, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I am going to be uploading more videos, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Friends, there has been so much chatter on social media about narcissistic mental health practitioners and how they've abused their clients who are victims of narcissists. And I can weigh in on this topic. I have had this experience myself. Before I get into that, it's important that people know that I've been in multiple relationships with narcissists. I've been married many times, and unfortunately, they were all narcissists, and some of my other romantic relationships, at a minimum, they were very selfish people, self-centered and narcissistic, but the husbands were narcissists. And in all three cases, I went to marriage counseling with them thinking that would fix everything. And two of the three counselors were narcissists. The first counselor, we're going back like 20 years. She was very misinformed. She didn't know anything about personality disorders. And, in her defense, back in those days, it wasn't even taught to people in college who were studying to be counselors. And I think she might have been a licensed social worker or something like that. They didn't even learn about personality disorders. That was something that I think that was only looked at in like prison populations. And so she didn't ever bring that up. It never got brought up. But I know now, because of everything I've learned about NPD, I know my first husband was a narcissist, and we had like 2 sessions with her, and I'm just like, this is just a waste of time. And that marriage ended. The second marriage, which was about 10 years ago, also a narcissist, but the reason why we sought out counseling was because he was a quote-unquote sex addict. And the counselor that we chose, this is very interesting. He's not a counselor anymore. He actually, at the time, he was a nationally well-known sex addiction treatment specialist. I mean, people traveled from all over the country to obtain his services with sex addiction. That's how prominent this individual was. And he actually does not practice clinically anymore. He now runs a private school out in Hollywood, and the school is owned by, shall we say, a very well-known, prominent Titanic movie director. But back when he was our counselor, he was the counselor was completely bald, and today he's got a full head of hair, and it's just like totally amazing. So I guess it's just that California smog helped him grow a full head of hair. But anyway, back when me and the ex were going to him for counseling for his quote-unquote sex addiction, instead of addressing the sex addiction, the counselor said, okay, first of all, you're a narcissist. That's what he said to the husband, the ex. And he looked at me and he said, and you're an addict too. And I said, oh, I'm an addict. He says, yeah, you're addicted to him. Now, at the time, I didn't know anything about NPD, so I completely rejected that. Today, I would agree to that to some extent. I do think that victims who are the primary partner of a narcissist, particularly like in a marriage, I do think you can form addiction. Actually, it's not really an addiction, because addiction requires some kind of chemical, but to be introduced into the body, like alcohol or drugs. But it is a cycle, and pattern of compulsive obsessive behavior. So I would agree that I was acting that way. But anyway, what I didn't like about the counselor was he attacked me for my religious beliefs. And he basically called me a religious fanatic and said I was addicted to my religion. And I think he even used the word religiosity, which is bizarre because honestly, in my past, I had fallen away from my faith. And I should do a video about that, how Christians who get into relationships with narcissists lose their faith because you have to, the narcissist is not going to compete with God for your attention. So you've got to dial back your religion to be in a relationship with these folks. But anyway, so this man was attacking my religion. He spent more time attacking my religion and basically attempting to get me to feel sympathy for the narc, because of course the only reason why he was addicted to sex is because I was cold and unfeeling and I had no sympathy and I didn't care and I didn't understand and all this. That's absurd. The narcissist was like that long before he knew me. He was like that probably when he was 6 years old or even younger, because they all are. A narcissist is fully baked, done, stick a fork in it, it's done probably by the age of 8 or 9 at the oldest. That's why when you meet people, if you know a narcissist in adulthood, if you meet someone that knew them in childhood, and I had the opportunity to do this with my last husband, I say, hey, you knew him when he was a kid. Was he bossy back then? Oh, good Lord. Bossy, that's an understatement. Yeah, he was a control freak. But anyway, so that was the counselor in the second marriage, attacked me and was basically siding with the narcissist. So he would pit the two of us against one another. He'd kind of get us going in an argument, and then he'd sit there and he'd smirk while we were arguing. But at that last session when he attacked my religion and called me a fanatic and said that the Catholic Church was a cult and things, I literally stood up and said, I'm done, I'm not coming back, and I walked out. And the narc was perfectly fine with that, and he said it was too expensive anyway. Because broke narcs are always cheapskates, as you know. But anyway, and then my last husband, who also was diagnosed, I only went to one marriage counseling session with him, and it was actually with my priest. And thank God, my priest, thank God for this man. He saw through the narcissist. He saw that he was a very sick, diabolically damaged, mentally damaged person. And I had an opportunity to talk to him after the marriage busted up, and he told me, he said, that guy needs a lot of psychological help. He is a very sick person. But anyway, I didn't go to marriage counseling with a counselor with the last husband. What I did do is I went to an individual counselor to help me to figure out how to cope with this person that I was married to. And the mistake I made is when I found out she knew my husband from a few years back, I should have got up and walked out and said, okay, I'm going to find someone else. But the reason why she knew him is because my husband is a businessman in our area, and he's very well known from his business. But the other thing is a lot of people know him from when he was younger because he used to be in the entertainment industry. And I would say that he had a moderate amount of fame and success when he was a performer in the region that we live in. I would say the geographic region. So a little bigger than our town, but not nationwide. And he is a musician, and he was in a band in a certain type of music, and they traveled around. I don't think they traveled all over the U.S., but they were pretty well known and whatnot. Okay, so anyway, so a lot of people know him. he has a very wide network of narcissistic supply, so that shouldn't be any shock to anyone. But anyway, she happened to know him from knowing who he is in the community and having interacted with him briefly about a decade before as one of his business customers. So she already had an opinion of him, and it was very positive. And dummy me, I thought that that would help me. It's like, okay, well, she knows what kind of person he is. It's like, no, I just wasn't, I guess I wasn't on my A game that day. I was like, oh, well, she knows what kind of person he is, so that'll help me. It's like, no, she knew the mask. But anyway, that was a mistake on my part. But anyway, I went to counseling sessions with this woman weekly, and then it was like every other week for a year and a half. That's a long time. She never helped me. As a matter of fact, towards the end of the counseling, it got to the point where she literally was crying real tears running down her face for him. All of her quote-unquote sympathy was for him because of the hard life he had lived. Okay, yes, his mom died when he was younger. I'm not a little tiny child, but as a teenager. Yeah, his mom died, but he's already a narcissist by then. And he once confided in me, it's not the loss of his mom that hurt him so much. It's that she left him there with his dad. He had no siblings. He was pissed off at her because she left him. See, mom treated him like the star that he was, and mom was just the moon to his sun, and she was the perfect supply, the perfect source of narcissistic, she would be like, using HD Tudor terminology, a non-intimate primary source, and she was very good at it. And she died suddenly at a young age, and he never ever forgave her for dying and taking that away from him. And I think he spent all these years trying to find that in some woman. And I think I came very close, but it was just a very short relationship. But anyway, so my counselor was basically feeling sympathy for him, and she was shedding tears and crying for him. Not crying because he abused me, not crying because he abused my kids, crying because she felt sorry for him. And the other thing is that, during a 50-minute counseling session, I'd get to speak for 5 minutes, and the rest of the session would be her talking about herself, talking about her life, talking about her family, talking about her boyfriend, talking about her feelings. She didn't give a shit about me. She didn't care. She didn't care about me or what I was going through. She was just cashing my checks. What a racket. What a great money-making racket that these narcissistic mental health practitioners have going on. And you know what? They're everywhere. They're psychiatrists, they are psychologists, they are therapists, they are counselors, they are coaches, they are clinical social workers, and they're everywhere. But guess what, folks? I don't think they know they're narcissists. I don't think they do. Why do I say that? Because I don't believe most narcissists know what they are. I don't think they do. Why? Because they have no self-awareness. How could someone who never reflects upon themselves or their behavior know what they are? It's impossible. Now, what about when one of these people gets diagnosed? I don't think they accept their diagnosis. I think they reject it. If it benefits them, they play along. Oh, I'm a narcissist. Okay, I'll play along and then you'll like me. I think that's what my last husband did when he got diagnosed. He was seeing a counselor who diagnosed him. I think he played along with it because he got narcissistic supply by admitting, yeah, I'm a narc, you're right, let's do something about it. I think he got supply from the therapist for going along with it. I don't think he accepted it. I think he went along with it. Just like I saw him go along with things in our marriage that he really didn't like. because it got him supply. But when he didn't get supply anymore, they quit doing it. Just like my husband, when he wasn't getting supply anymore for admitting to be a narc, he quit going to counseling. No, I'm done now. This isn't worth it. This guy's not helping me. I know what that means when the narc says they're not helping. What that means is you're not giving me supply anymore. That's what they mean when they say that. So, why do these unaware, narcissistic mental health practitioners, why do they do that? Whether you're in a joint session with a narc or not, why do they side with the narcissist? Why do they show sympathy for the narcissist? Why do they intentionally provoke fights and then sit back and smirk? Or smile? Or say nothing and act indifferent? They literally will set it up so that the narcissist starts abusing you in the session and the counselor does nothing. They don't act as a mediator. They don't break up the fight. I think I know why they do it. They're triangulating. Yeah, because they're a narcissist. They're triangulating. And even if the narc's not in the room, they're still triangulating. That's how you know this mental health practitioner is a narcissist, because a non-narc would never do that. They would never do that. Non-narcissists don't triangulate. Why? Because they have empathy. What does that matter? Because they know it would hurt. And they know they don't like it, so they wouldn't do it to you. That's why these unaware narcissists who are masquerading as mental health practitioners, and let's just throw in there these fake narcissistic abuse coaches that are all over YouTube. And I could name names because I've had interactions with some of them. But I don't want to get kicked off YouTube, so I'm not naming names. And I've had some interactions with, there's a couple who admit to being narcs, and their work is very good, but you know what you're getting. And I've had private consultations with one of them. And it's worth every penny. I'd do it again. But you know what you're dealing with. So you're not getting manipulated. But, back to these unaware, narcissistic mental health practitioners, they are triangulating. Why are they triangulating? Because they get supply from the triangulation. Yeah, they get supply in two ways. One, the narc may give them fuel, to use the H.G. Tudor terminology. The narc may give them supply, the benign supply, right? The positive validation by, yeah, exactly. Or, thank you, finally someone is defending me, by agreeing with the counselor, by communicating to the counselor, maybe even non-verbally. Hey, I like what you're doing there, keep it up. It could be a very subtle look that the narcissists only see in each other. They probably got their own private communication. The narcissists on YouTube, the ones that are the self-proclaimed, they both say this. Narcs know each other. They don't walk up to each other and say, well, hello, I'm a narcissist and nice to meet you. You seem like one. They don't do that, but they recognize each other in their behavior. Which is interesting because if you've ever seen two narcissists in the room together, usually, I've seen this before, one tries to recruit the other, and if that doesn't work, they clash. And if that doesn't work, one of them leaves or ignores. They withdraw. It's just what they do. But anyway, so in the counseling session, so the unaware narcissistic mental health practitioner, they get supply from the narc because the narc communicates to them in some fashion. I like what you're doing. Or maybe the narc's not there, and so it's just a neutral thing. But the counselor also gets narcissistic supply from your negative reaction, your pain, your upset, your anger, your frustration. That gives them supply. And because they don't know they're a narcissist, they don't even know that they're getting supply. They just know they feel a positive feeling inside of themselves, and they go, oh, okay, I'm doing the right thing as a counselor. My therapeutic technique is correct because I feel good about myself. No. Because these narcissists are emotional thinkers. They're not logical, and they certainly don't operate off of principles. So they're not following any therapeutic principles or therapeutic methodology. You know they're not, because triangulation's not one of them. That's not a modality of therapy. But they're doing it anyway. So, friends, I think I've answered this question. No, these counselors do not know what they're doing. They're not just bullies that know that they're a bully and know what they're doing. They are unaware narcissists who are triangulating to get supply, but they tell themselves that the positive feelings, which are really just power and control that they feel, they tell themselves, they lie to themselves and say, oh, yes, I'm doing the right thing. We're making progress. They deceive themselves. They manipulate themselves. It's sick, but they manipulate themselves and they lie to themselves. That's why they're doing it. And if that happens, you get up and you walk out and don't ever go back. You never complain, never explain. You don't need to say anything. You just say, I'm out of here. Just like what I did with the Titanic counselor. I just said, you know what, I'm done, I'm not coming back. I walked out, that was it. And I never went back. And I didn't feel bad about it. You get up, you walk out, you don't go back, okay? And I can tell you with 100% certainty, the number one foolproof way to never, ever, ever get into marriage counseling with your narcissist, to never pick a narcissistic marriage counselor to go to counseling with a narcissist. You don't go to counseling with a narcissist. That is a guaranteed 100% never fail way to avoid ending up with a narcissistic marriage counselor with a narcissist. You don't go. You don't go to counseling with a narcissist. It doesn't work. Why? Because they can't change. They can pretend to change. Some of them can pretend to change. Some of them are very good at pretending to change. But it's not permanent. It's a fixed personality. There is no hope for these people. I am a Christian, and I'm telling you, there is no human hope for these people. There is no human solution. Counseling will not work with a narcissist. Narcissism at its root is a spiritual problem. Friends, it is a spiritual solution. A counselor cannot fix a narcissist. This wound is in a place that only God has access to. Even the narc themselves cannot access this wound. You have to understand that. No counseling. You do not go to counseling with a narcissist. And if you seek out mental health assistance from someone, and you can't tell until you get with someone that they're a narcissist. Use all the skills that you're learning in your healing to assess, am I dealing with a narcissist? You do this, it's probably even more important that you assess a potential counselor even more thoroughly than you do a potential romantic partner, because this person can really do a lot of damage to you. It can set you back. The last counselor I went to, the one that was crying for my ex-narc husband, let me tell you something. This woman, when I first went to her, I was already questioning, should I leave the marriage? If she had done her job properly, I would have been out of that marriage after a year of marriage instead of 3 years. It would have never gotten to the point of domestic violence and child abuse if she had done her job properly, instead of convincing me that I wasn't showing enough sympathy and support for my husband who needed me. So yeah, there's a little bit of irritation. It's just amazing to me that empathic people were just so trusting. And again, don't feel bad about vetting these people out. If you think they look okay, you get in that first session, there's some things you're going to look for. And one of the number one indicators that you're dealing with a narcissistic person is they talk more than they listen, especially a counselor. A counselor should be talking like 25% of the time. And they should never, ever, ever make references to their personal experiences in a counseling session. That has no bearing on your counseling. The only exception is if they themselves have experienced narcissistic abuse and they are able to show empathy and sympathy towards you because they themselves have been through it. But they should not be talking about their personal experiences because, first of all, that's a violation of HIPAA privacy laws. These are federal laws. They are violating the privacy of the other people that they're talking about. So that's against the law. They could lose their license for that. So that right there shows you that they're narcissistic because they have no empathy. They don't care about violating other people's privacy. But yeah, if you get into a session and this person is just yapping the whole session and you say 2 words, you need to find someone else. Friends, I hope this has been really helpful to you. It's been kind of fun and interesting for me to talk about. It's something that I've thought about a lot, but up until recently I didn't really feel the need to speak out on it. But again, there's some very well-meaning narcissistic support people on YouTube, and they mean well, but they're just misinformed and they're misguided. They don't understand narcissism very well, and they probably will someday. And I'm still learning myself. I'm not an expert. But I feel like I have a pretty decent grasp on what motivates them. And it's power and control. That's the name of the game for them. So, hope this has been helpful. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.